Hi guys, I've got Chris here with me today, and we're going to be talking about CS and sales, where there's usually a bit of disconnect, but how Chris has managed to dive into TrustLayer's CS and sales collaboration. So, Chris, I'll hand over to you. Can you introduce yourself and TrustLayer?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Lewis. I'm the Director of Customer Success at TrustLayer. TrustLayer basically was born out of a need to kind of modernize how businesses manage vendor risk and compliance, right?
Mm,
So there was a lot of manual processes that were costly, that was unreliable. There was everybody's working off of spreadsheets, differing emails and inboxes where things could vary depending on who said what when and what was
mm,
agreed upon and what was provided, right? And the other thing that we found is that a lot of the compliance documents that folks were collecting were just being stored in either a drive or in one person's drive
yeah.
or in one person's desk where it just kind of piled up.
Yeah.
And so whenever there was like an audit or whenever they needed to understand if someone had provided something, it was more of an effort to kind of go through the rigmarole of trying to who has what and where is it located and all that kind of stuff. So that's really what TrustLayer was designed to do, is really automate as well as take in mutual accountability through automation and provide more transparent networks in terms of like internal networks as well as the experience that you're having with your vendors, right?
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think what's your journey then been with TrustLayer? How long have you been there and like that?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting journey because I started in, I believe, 2021. So
Okay.
right post-pandemic,
Mm,
kind of like we're still in pandemic era, still figuring things out.
yeah.
And I started about that time frame, and I started as an implementation manager
Okay.
there at TrustLayer. So uh, implementation manager, implementation specialist.
Hmm.
Basically, I was handling all of the onboarding that we were doing for our customers, right? We also had a bit of a rift because around that time there was like from like a VC and investment type portfolio type scenario, like most folks weren't investing. There was kind of like a downturn in that economy.
Yeah.
So like most other companies, our boards were saying, hey, you need to reduce your burn, you need to extend your runway, you
Yeah.
need to do all these things because the money's not coming. So
Mm,
you guys have to figure out how to stand the test of this time period, right?
yeah.
So as a result, there was a huge riff that we call it the riff, where we had to let go of a decent amount of folks. Like our CEO had to make a difficult decision
Mm,
about whether we keep folks and keep the smaller runway that we had, or we let some folks go to extend the overall runway of the company.
mm,
So that was a hard choice, and I think it really impacted all of us pretty difficultly, but especially our CEO. He's a very caring guy. um, what we did though for everybody that was let go, we helped them find other jobs, made sure that everybody was secure and everything like that. So we tried to do it as like fair and respectfully as possible, but that lended itself to then being a smaller, much smaller team. So where we had like originally we had a director of customer success, we had like 4 or 5 implementation managers, we had some support folks, a CS folks, and it all whittled down to 2 implementation managers
okay.
and 1 support person.
Okay. Yeah. Fine.
And so me being one of those implementation managers and my counterpart at the time, Kim, being the other. And our CRO came to Kim and I and was like, hey, this is your baby now.
Mm,
You guys have to figure out how to make this work
mm,
because the cavalry is not coming.
mm.
And that was an interesting position to be put
Yeah.
into. It really is one of those like you either step up or you just fall down,
Mm,
right? And I think him and I, luckily, him and I just really worked well together.
Hmm.
So we just started strategizing. We started meeting on a daily basis. We made sure that everything was an open conversation in terms of like the decisions that we were making, the processes that we were creating, because it had to be something that worked for the size that we were now, but
Mm.
also lent itself to being scalable in the future as well, so that we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel when the time came to bring on more individuals, right?
Yeah.
So we built out that implementation and onboarding, and also more importantly, making sure that our customers didn't feel the impact of this rift, right? It wasn't their fault that this happened, so why should they feel that pain point as well? So did a number of things, but essentially boiled down to rebuilding that onboarding wing of the customer success program.
Okay.
And through that, I kind of worked my way up to director of implementation,
Hmm.
from working and building all that out and hitting all the metrics and milestones that our CRO and our executive team needed to see to kind of bring me up that ladder.
Nice.
And then eventually they gave me the entire CS
Mm.
umbrella. So that includes the onboarding, the customer success managers, account managers, and our support team. So it's
Okay.
kind of been my journey here. So in about 4 years, I've kind of climbed up essentially.
Nice. Yeah, cool. No, it makes sense, and yeah, I think I see how your value being in this position. I think you need to have experienced the other parts of it. So being the implementation manager, I can see that because you then closer to the pain. You're closer to the pain of what goes on, right?
Absolutely. I think a lot of I've learned a lot of lessons through this journey, especially a lot of leadership lessons. And I think the biggest one is understanding that at the end of the day, being in the trenches is very different than being strategic,
Mm.
right? And there's the tactical and there's the strategic. There's the working in the business and then working on the business, right? And I think for a long time, because there was a portion of time where I was a director, but I was also onboarding people because we only had one other onboarding person. So eventually, like her calendar got booked, and
Mm.
people were like, I don't want to wait 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so like I had to step in and just be like, all right, let's go. We're doing this,
Mm.
like type of thing, right? And it I had to learn a balance of how do you work in the business while still working on the business.
Mm.
I'm still navigating that to
Yeah.
this day. We have a manager of implementation, which is Kim. So she's also moved up. And then she has one other person under her that is an implementation manager as well. And then we hired data analysts that assist with the onboarding process to take some weight off of the work and setup that the implementation managers have to do. So now their role is more consultative instead of having to be tactical and building out the workspaces, doing all these types of things that we normally had to do.
Mm.
We changed it so that those data analysts worked in the workspace. The implementation managers work with the customers, right? They consult, they talk about how that build is going to lend itself to their specific use case.
Mm.
TrustLayer is very customizable, right? So understanding their business use case impacts how we build their instance.
Mm.
So now our team gets to be more consultative while the analysts get to be more tactical in that building. And that really freed up a lot of space as well. So that was a huge shift that we were able to make. But yeah, to your point, having had to come up
Mm.
and having been in the trenches has really informed how I try to lead
Yeah.
and the decisions that I make. And I'm very much so the type of person that recognizes, especially now as I step further away from the tactical and more into the strategic, I'm always including my team in all of my decision making that
Mm.
I'm doing because now they have a lens that I no longer have insight into the way that I used
Yeah.
to, right? So respecting that information is crucial to process improvements, is crucial to creating a scalable CS program that works is understanding that what I think might be a good idea might not work from a tactical standpoint. So talking to them about, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's where I want us to go. What do
Mm.
you guys think? And getting their feedback is crucial to the scaling process, I feel like.
Definitely. No, that makes complete sense. And yeah, I think it's I think if other businesses could take people through that same progression to head up the CS team, then I think that will massively help. I also think if someone came from the sales perspective or came from the CS perspective to the sales perspective or the other way around, that would be massively beneficial because one of the
1,000%.
yeah one of the biggest disconnects that I've seen on the sales and the CS is the salespeople just pushing to get the deal across the line by any means necessary, and then the CS kind of being left with it to deal
Absolutely.
with. Um,
Hmm.
is that a fair assumption from the CS side of things? Is that what you see as well?
Yeah, I'd say that's the most common challenge, right? That a CS sales collaboration feels. I think where TrustLayer has been pretty great is that we've started with CS not being an afterthought, where in some companies the priority is that sale and is getting that customer in
Yeah.
by any means necessary. We've identified that that's not our mission. That's not how we want to go about things. Basically, CS is baked into how we deliver outcomes, how we scale intentionally,
Hmm.
how we go about customer-led growth over time. And the other thing that we've done is because we prioritize this so much is when we have new sales hires, new AEs,
Hmm.
part of their onboarding rotation is a CS rotation
Okay.
where they go through and learn the CS process, learn how onboarding works, learns how customer success works.
Yeah.
They have to watch training videos on how we train folks. Like they have to go through a CS
Nice.
portion of their onboarding before they move forward and are starting to work with customers and starting to bring on deals. So
Mm.
I think that has really helped bring together that notion that like it's not two disparate departments,
Mm.
but it's departments that feed on each other and help each other out. And getting the AEs to understand that early on
Mm.
fosters that continued engagement later on so that there's rarely a time if there's the AEs are so aware of the outliers that exist
Mm.
in terms of our customers that when those do exist, they come to me or they come to Kim immediately and they're telling us like, hey, here's the situation, here's the prospect that we have, here's what they're looking for. Can we accommodate this? And it's a conversation
Mm.
rather than an, a last minute, here you go type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So which also helps bring us into the conversation earlier because a lot of
Mhm.
times they're like, hey, can you jump on this call and talk
Yeah.
through it with them,
Yeah. No.
right? So
Yeah, and then it brings that similar point of contact. There's a bit more of that assumptive style close as well, so people are probably boost the conversions. You guys getting involved early, and I also think probably a factor in why TrustLayer is set up the way it is because I think you mentioned the CRO looks after obviously the sales team, but also the CS. Whereas I think in other, well,
yes,
in other organizations, CS is looked after by COOs. Um,
right, right,
that makes it like
yeah,
again wrong putting them not to get like not together, not to the same functions, which I think can make a big.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Big shout out to our CRO Jason, who just his really his specialty is in GTM functions, right?
Mm.
So in terms of a go to market, so his idea is like the go to market team is everybody.
Mm.
It's not just it's not just sales, it's not just marketing, right?
Yeah.
So we have sales, we have marketing, we have partnership, we have CS, we have product as part of our go-to-market meetings. So like the things that we're talking about aren't out of scope or out of left field, right? So we have engineering, we have our CTO that comes into our go-to-market meetings, right? So every facet of how Jason has designed this is that GTM is everybody's job.
Nice.
It's
Yeah.
not just one person's or one department's, right? So yeah, to your point, that's really helped us collaborate a lot better and really helped us avoid the siloing that can happen pretty easily if you're not intentional about it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So going on to more of the sales strategies. So sales strategies that you've noticed for growing trust layer. From your perspective,
Mhm.
what do you think works? What do you think doesn't work? What have you seen being applied and maybe you thought it may work really well with your function that you look after and maybe it hasn't?
Yeah, I would say what I think has worked is the fact that CS plus sales equals strategic growth. That's kind of
Hmm.
what we've identified, right? So we treat CS as like a signal amplifier.
Hmm.
What CS hears in the field, it gets funneled back to sales, which refines our ICP, it tailors our messaging that marketing is sending out.
Okay.
It tailors our expansion opportunities, what we're working on, what we're looking to bring to market. So we leverage that very heavily as a means of indicating what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be moving forward from a sales standpoint.
Okay.
I think even so, there still happens where the challenge that we run into
Hmm.
is misaligned expectations, right? So I think that can come when sales gets a little too happy, a little too
Yeah. Yeah.
slinging by their waist and just shooting whatever comes in.
Yeah.
And how we kind of manage that challenge is really building a co-success plan, right? So
Mm.
understanding exactly what the ICP and what that prospect
Hmm.
is looking for from a business outcome, having those conversations with them and understanding what their actual needs are
Hmm.
is imperative to ensuring that we're bringing on the right prospect, the right customer, the exact ICP that we're looking for. I think another challenge that we do face as well is post onboarding drop off, right? So after they've been onboarded, the adoption isn't what we've originally thought of or expected it to be. And that is usually solved in a CS lens as well, where
Okay.
now we've started to offer post onboarding audits of their workspaces.
Mm.
We're creating strategic reviews that re engage the customers and also uncover upsell and referral opportunities, right? I
Mm.
think that's a big thing. Mostly from a sales standpoint, what we're trying to identify now is the best channel.
Yeah.
Like there's multiple channels, right? When it comes to like the sales motion. I think we haven't been able to fully tap into this yet, but we're aware of its potency is customer referrals.
Mm.
Customer referrals and improving our customers' network.
Mm.
Because we realize when it comes to compliance, when it comes to understanding the overall risk transfer and safety of what you're doing as a business,
Mm.
it lends itself to the folks that you're doing business with,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it you as a business could be have all your ducks in a row, everything is set, but as a contractor, you might be working with a subcontractor. Do you know how well they're tracking their insurance? Do you know how well they're tracking their compliance information? Because that whole ecosystem of
Mm.
risk is what's important and is what we're realizing.
Yeah.
So helping our customers feel the value of TrustLayer first for themselves,
Mm.
and then going back to them and going like, hey, this is looking good for you,
Yeah.
but what's going on with your guy over there?
Yeah.
Is he, are they also doing their due diligence?
Yeah.
Because if not, you could be as careful as you want to be, but the moment there's a claim, you're still a part of that issue,
Yeah.
because they didn't track their certificates correctly, or didn't have the right safety documentation, or any number of things that are part of that vendor risk and compliance lifecycle that you were not aware that your third party that you're doing business with isn't doing, right? So leveraging that conversation where it's like, not only is this good for you, it's good for your ecosystem. So refer us to those folks that you're doing business with,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, no, I like that.
yeah,
So just uncovering or summarizing some of those points is so having your customers as the main data point in the first set. So what's our ideal customer profile instead of going to the market? It's well, who's paying us at the moment, which sounds simple as I said, but again, loads of businesses don't do this. They will
absolutely.
go to the market and say, okay, let's see who we can get. But actually, you've got five people that are maybe paying you the most money that you've ever seen as a business, and then you're going on
Mhm.
the type of business that you think is shiny, might work, but then actually you're not looking at the data that you've got already. And then also the channels, like again, something that a lot of businesses don't look at is how has that customer from how has that customer's experience gone, or how has the customer's success gone from this channel versus that channel, and
Mhm.
then looking back and saying, okay, well, why is that? Is it we're doing cold outbound, and that customer, when we do cold outbound, we can convince them to buy, but we're selling to them instead of them buying from us. So
Mhm. Mhm.
like variations like that, or if it's this customer is really happy, stayed for ages, they came through ads. So that's because people are putting their hand up and saying, yeah, I actually need this. Like those sort of things people don't look at, um,
For sure.
which I think also then feeds back into your sales teams, have them being able to have more success, have more budget, because if you're turning off the taps that don't feed the business for as long of a time, so there's not as much lifetime value from certain channels, then they can focus in and just get more from those one channels, or
Absolutely.
those focus.
Absolutely. I think that what oftentimes gets lost in the sales conversation is the idea that everything needs to come from like net
Mm,
new prospects, net new customers, right? And I think what we're trying to proof of concept, and I think other companies have done it as well, so this isn't a novel idea,
mm,
but how do we incorporate into what TrustLayer is doing is recognizing that expansion, referral, and renewals are huge.
mm,
Like that. And if you're not tapping into your existing customer base, you are losing out
mm,
on not necessarily easy income. So not to say that it's necessarily going to be easy work, but it's you're leaving money on the table, right? You're leaving opportunities on the table when you're trying to go and cold outreach to another 1,000 prospects. You
yeah,
know what's great? That warm intro from your current customer to five of their folks that they're working with.
yeah, yeah,
Warm email.
yeah,
Hey, I use TrustLayer. I think you should too.
yeah,
Here's so and so. Have the conversation. That will get you 9 times out of 10 more results than the 1,000 cold emails or outbound calls that you did that day, right? So
Sorry to interrupt. I'll let you get back to the podcast in a second. Hopefully, you're enjoying it so far. I wanted to let you know that our sales performance meter, that is usually an internal tool, we're giving away to everyone. Well, everyone that watches our podcast at least. So it's the first link in the comments, and it gives you a score on how your sales motion is performing. You may be thinking, yes, I already know how my sales team's performing. We make X amount of revenue, we do this, do that, but it identifies gaps or highlights what you're doing well and gives you recommendations of how to fix it. And it takes 2 minutes. and it's completely free. So if there's anyone that's in a business that's maybe the execs or the founder or they're involved in sales at all, you should be taking this scorecard. You should be, if you've clicked on this podcast and you've watched it to this point, you definitely have 2 minutes to find out how your sales team's performing. So answer the multiple choice questions and let me know your score in the comments, or message me on LinkedIn. Or if you did it and you thought it was completely pointless and you didn't get any value from it, then message me on LinkedIn and I will pay you back for your time. That's how confident I am in the scorecard. But I'll let you go back to the podcast now. Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. I think a consideration that people have to take into that is like, don't ask your customers that aren't happy to refer you on. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think that's why recognizing the importance of CS and actually functioning CS program is so important, because that's where your signal indicators are,
yeah,
right? The work that your CS team is doing is letting you know who are those
yeah,
apps that you can tap into, right? And who aren't. And if they aren't, then let's put CS on them to get them to the place where they would be a valuable asset in that regard. Because at the end of the day, just because they signed up, just because they started using, doesn't mean they're going to stay.
yeah.
And I think lifetime value, LTV, that is also crucial and important in understanding. TrustLayer has been very lucky that we have a pretty good lifetime value. Like, I think at this point, most folks have been with us for like 3 to 4 years now. So
Mm,
that's where we're reckoning. We're like, hey, these people are here.
yeah.
They've stayed here. There's clearly some value here. How
Mm,
do we continue to leverage that to benefit them, but also benefit their ecosystem at the same time, which inherently benefits us?
yeah, yeah, nice. No, I like it. Okay. So I think there's probably some people listening that maybe don't have customers at the moment. So the
Mhm.
question that I think would be most beneficial for these people listening would be, what have you seen when the business does do outbound, does go out to new markets where you don't have customers, where it's not through a referral? What channel have you seen to be the happiest, the
Mm.
stay the longest, the ones that um yeah, the best clients?
I think what I've found, and this is just through kind of being around our sales team, because obviously sales is not what I'm doing on the daily basis, but just from talking to them and understanding what they do, it's less about the channel
Mm,
and more about the understanding the customer, the prospect,
mm,
and understanding your ICP.
mm,
So, because at the end of the day, you could you could be using all the channels that you want, but if you're just shooting into the abyss, hoping for the best,
yeah,
like, you're not going to get the same results as if you were to sit down, understand your customer's life cycle
yeah,
from sales, from onboarding to adoption to expansion to renewal
mm,
to referral, understand how that works, and then also understand in relation to that customer life cycle and journey, what's your ICP as it relates to that. So
mm,
we identified uh, some customer personas, right? So we have these are kind of funny. We have Captain Compliance.
okay,
So this is a customer that is extremely engaged, that is looking to match their contracts exactly,
mm,
looking for exact documentation, and very concerned about their compliance score and how that relates to the business that they're doing with these third parties.
mhm,
Captain Compliance will not do business with you if you do not hit these requirements,
yeah,
right? Then there's Miss Get It Done.
yeah,
Miss Get It Done is underwater. She's getting certificates, she's getting documents, she's getting all these things from all over the place, and she's just lucky to collect and say that everything is on file for each party, right? for each third party that you're doing. Just get it done. Then we have our Goldilocks, somewhere in the middle, right? That individual that cares about compliance, but maybe isn't there yet. Maybe they're in miss get it done phase. They want to get to captain compliance,
Mm.
but they're just at miss get it done. So we put them in Goldilocks because they're interested in doing more. They're just not ready yet.
Nice.
After we created these three personas, our sales team now has something to go out into the market with
Mm.
that helps them understand, helps them question, helps them do discovery better. Where do they fit into this mold of these personas, into these ICPs? And also, it tailors their messaging because you're not going to send the same message to Captain Compliance that you're going to send to Ms. Get It Done.
Yeah.
They're completely different people, right? So it took us taking the time to understand our customer journey, to understand our ICP, to then tailor our messaging, to then tailor our sales channels accordingly. But what we have found is like funnels, like and campaigns that are specific to those personas
Mm.
have been very fruitful.
Yeah.
But it's because we've tailored it to be that way, and it's not just a sales funnel or a campaign that's just sending whatever to whomever and hoping for the best, right? So
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that you can then be so precise with your targeting, your messaging, and everything. And I think that's yeah, going deep into actually having personas is helpful. Curious, do you have do the when the salespeople are then um put someone into a bucket or put them into that persona, will they then share that across to you on CS and say, okay,
yes,
this type
yeah,
of person, so prepare maybe in this way. Nice.
exactly. And that's where that fluidity, that continuity comes into play is because everybody understands that persona. We built that persona together.
Nice.
Everybody informed what that is. So now when sales comes and it's like, hey, this is a captain compliance, they're going to be on our pro plan, they're going to be doing this, and the third. We use those sales notes to inform our onboarding, right?
Mm,
And then that informs that customer's experience from the get-go
mm,
because we already know what type that they are. We already know kind of how it's going to go for the most part. And sometimes it switches up,
mm,
right? Sometimes they'll come in as a Miss Get It Done, but as they start to consult
mm.
with our onboarding team, they're like, I think I care more about this than I thought I did.
Yeah.
I think I'm a captain compliance, but I just never had the resources or the people to be that.
Yeah.
So can TrustLayer help me be that, right? And then now you're creating milestones, success milestones around, okay, they want to get to be captain compliance. We're
Mm,
going to switch up how we're building out this workspace. We're going to switch up how we're creating the workflows for them that lends itself to them creating and becoming that success that they're looking for, that desired outcome that they're looking for, right? So
yeah. I love it. I think it's I I like this connection between the whole go to market, like you said, and it's with CS and sales. I can see how much benefit it brings to the organization and to everyone involved. So no, I really like it, Chris. So what's your plans for the year ahead? Goals, aspirations?
yeah, so I would say as it relates to our team right now, we're really still in that phase where we're trying to be lean and strategic, which means that we're only hiring where gaps exist,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not necessarily for volume, although we do intend to looking to scale significantly this year,
Mm-hmm.
but understanding where those gaps are and being strategic about that hiring because I think what happened to us as what happens to like a lot of companies that get their Series A is we got our Series A and we were like hire, and like and then we learned that that's not always the best thing
Yeah.
because the economies at scale might not always lend itself to that, which is what happened to us and
Mm,
occurred with the rift. So now we're being very strategic about and intentional about how that hiring occurs. So I think that's going to be a big focus from like a team standpoint. The other piece is automation.
okay.
Automation. We want to scale through smarter workflows, especially as it relates to onboarding and post-onboarding CS engagement, right? Because if we're focusing on those referrals and getting those warm intros, we need to make sure that we're aligned with
Mm,
what those customers are actually looking for and that they're getting business outcome, the
mm,
business outcome
mhm,
that they're looking for. I think oftentimes it's easy to get trapped in, I should say this. It's important to understand the desired outcome of your individual contributors
mhm,
because, for example, there's a difference between the decision maker who bought the software and the champion, as we call it, who's actually utilizing the software, right? The desired outcome of that champion is going to be very different than the desired outcome of that decision maker. So
mhm,
you have to take both into consideration, but the work of CS as well is identifying how are those combined things lending itself towards the business outcome of that company as a whole,
yeah,
because that's really what's going to move the needle. Just because we made the champion happy doesn't mean they're going to renew.
yeah,
And then just because we made the decision maker happy doesn't necessarily mean they're going to renew either, because the champion could be super unhappy and
mm,
inform the decision maker, I don't want to use the software anymore.
yeah,
Right. So part of that work is identifying, yes, each of their desired outcomes, but how does that lend itself to an overall business outcome that we can help them achieve that lends itself to those referrals? So I think automation is going to help us get there.
mm,
AI, at the end of the day, AI is becoming a huge part of the conversation. And I think, truthfully, if you're not leaning into it at this point, you're going to get left behind.
mhm,
And you don't want to be on that end of things in the next year or two. So we're really trying to be, how can we be strategic in doing all that? And then, of course, we also have ad spend, but making sure that that targeted messaging and the spending that we're doing is based off of CS insights
mm,
and that it's defined and targeted and informed and intentional, right? So really just going that route. I think at the end of the day, if I was to give some final tips, um, what we've recognized is at TrustLayer is that sales, sales gets the win. So sales gets the win, CS makes it stick, right? And in order to do that, we need to be working together in tandem and not in silos.
mm,
And the best growth happens when CS and sales co-own the customer outcome.
yeah,
Because if sales is just thinking about getting the deal across the line, the finish line, whose finish line?
yeah,
Because your sales finish line is not the customer's finish line, is not our company's finish line.
mm,
So our company's finish line, TrustLayer's finish line, is to ensure that customer is getting their desired outcome and that they're referring and that they're renewing and that we're upselling when and where possible,
yeah,
right? So if sales only thinks of their finish line as getting that closed one, getting that contract signed, then we're missing out on a whole opportunity, a whole collaboration moment where it's like, hey, how does this work past that? And
mm,
sales has to be thinking about that because it can't just be our journey. I have, for example, a few of our AEs, they'll touch base with the customers on top of what CS is doing. So 3 to 4 months in, they'll be like, "Hey, I know you completed onboarding. How's that going? How'd that go for you?
yeah,
I heard you're working with CS. How's that relationship going? Is there anything I can do? Blah, blah, blah." It keeps the continuity, right? But it also informs our sales team about what's going on, how that worked, what didn't work, what is working, right? And it makes the customer feel wrapped in services, wrapped in a team that actually cares and isn't disparate from one another. So I think the best growth happens when CS and sales co-own the customer outcome. And lastly, I will say, and to be cheesy with TrustLayer, but we've realized that at TrustLayer, real trust is built when value isn't just promised, it's proven, tracked, and celebrated. And
mm,
you can only do that when everybody understands that the customer's outcomes is everybody's responsibility, not just one department.
definitely. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I think if salespeople are going for the finish line, the race just gets harder and harder as well.
Hmm.
So no, I've really enjoyed this, Chris. I think it's a bit different to what we will usually dive into on the surface, but I think is if people have made it all the way through, they've realized actually CS is sales, sales is CS, go to market is everything. So no,
Exactly.
yeah, I've really enjoyed this. So Chris, I'll put your LinkedIn in the description. And is there any
Okay.
I should point people to if they wanted to reach out?
They could reach out to my email, Chris at TrustLayer.io. And if you're interested in a vendor risk management and compliance platform, please check out our TrustLayer website, TrustLayer.io. And you guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to DM me or anything like that, that works too.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on, Chris. That's the pod.
All right. Thank you, Cormac. I appreciate it.